This is part 4 of Introduction to After Effects, creating your first logo animations. And what we're going to do is create our third logo animations. We're going to combine 2 different comps, and we're also going to do a little bit of compositing to final it out. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to come up to Trap CG comp size. This is the one I'm going to start with. So I'm going to hit Control D in the keyboard to duplicate. And I'm going to right click and rename. So this one I'm going to rename to Trap CG logo. Oops, let me do a capital L. Animation _3. Let me double click that to activate it in the timeline. Okay, so I'm going to keep everything, all the logo parts, but I'm going to get rid of the Trap CG part. So I'm going to select all these layers, hit delete on the keyboard. Now I'm going to come over to the layer size one comp. I'm going to double click that so I can select Trap CG in here. Now, my commentary on this is make sure you're choosing the order you want the Trap CG to appear in this comp. So meaning that if I select the first one and shift select the last one, hit Control C for copy, come over to this one, Control V for paste, you'll see that it pastes it in the correct order, TRAPPCG. Okay, I'm going to undo this. If I actually, let's say I select the G first and then select the T, Control C, come back over here, Control V, it pastes the G first and then went backwards. So it's going to paste it in the order that you select it. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to select it in the correct order. So Trap to G, Control C, and Control V. Okay. So now that I have my text in here, I can go ahead and close this one out. So it's the logo animation 3 that we're going to be focusing on. And is there anything else that I need to prepare? Nope, that's pretty much it. So these layers are going to be individual layer sizes, and these are going to be the comp sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up the way I set it up the first time by selecting all these, hit A on the keyboard. I'm going to set the anchor point, and the center was what, 60, I think it was like 61.5, and then I dragged it down a little bit. Let me hide Trap CG so I can focus on this, and let me zoom in. That looks about right. Okay, so let me hit P again on the keyboard. Actually, let me open this up and go ahead and reset the position. So it's going to be 61.5, sorry, 621.5 and 507. There we go. Let me go ahead and close this out and remake these visible. So with this new layout started, let's go ahead and go File, Save. This logo animation, I think we should use 3D layers. So I'm thinking about having the logo icon fly from the camera to the center of the comp and then slide over into position. So let's start by creating a camera. Let's come up to Layer, New, Camera. Control-Alt-Shift-C is a shortcut, or you can actually right-click and blank space in the timeline to get it as well. I'm going to go ahead and click this. Okay, so here's our camera. We have settings automatically set for it. You can manually adjust any of these settings. You can even choose presets for the lens. I'm going to stick with 35mm. And then the type of camera, it says 2-node camera. That means the camera itself is a node, and then the camera, what it's pointing at, has a little node that can be adjusted. And you can switch this to 1 node, which would just be the camera as well. Then you have units if you want to change the way the units are being displayed. And you have measure film size horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. So you have all these options as well. And all these options can be changed after the fact. You don't have to change them in here right now. And then you also have depth of field if you want to turn that on. We're not going to turn it on right now just because it probably will slow down the playback of the system. So let's go ahead and click OK. Now this dialog just tells you that when you're creating a camera, cameras and lights don't affect 2D layers. So you're going to have to turn on 3D layers for the camera lights to really make a difference. So I'm going to click OK. Okay, so to start off with, I'm going to click on the first layer for the icon, which is this T center, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and click on the last layer here. Okay, so now I have all these layers selected. And I'm going to, over here where it has this 3D icon, I'm going to click that, and that turns on 3D layers. Now, if you don't have them all selected, you would have to click and drag just like this, and you can click and drag to deactivate them as well. So there's just the shortcut keys to activate 3D layers and multiple layers. Now, if I hit P on the keyboard now, you can see that I have 3 options. I have X, Y, and Z now. This is Z position. So get to and from the camera basically is what Z means. X and Y is left and right. X is left and right, Y is up and down, and Z is to and from the camera. And if I hit R on the keyboard, you can see I have extra control over the rotation values. And if I S, I have also got an extra control for scale. However, these objects are flat. And let me show you what I mean. Let me switch over from active camera to top. And you can see here, the objects are 100% flat. So this isn't going to make a difference on flat objects, just to give you a heads up. Now, just to zoom out here, here's the camera that we created. You can see that now we actually have physically 3D space. This is, again, is the top view. So that's the position of the camera, and the elements are over here. So let me go ahead and click on my elements again. I'm going to come out of the top view, back to active camera. So this is viewing it through the camera. And is there anything else I need to change? No. So I'm going to hit P on the keyboard to activate position. And let's go ahead and take the time slider all the way to, let's say, 1 second. All right. And I don't know how long I'm going to create this animation. I'm just guessing for right now. So I'm going to hit the stopwatch to create the keyframes and to turn on animation mode. I'm going to go to frame 15. And I'm going to slide it over to the center of the comp. Now, half of 1920, which is this size, is 960, I believe. So I can manually come in here and type in 960 because my anchor point is in the center of my elements or my logo icon. Now, if you don't trust that, what you could do is come over here and turn on rulers. And then when you click and drag, when you click on a ruler area and drag, so I'm holding down the left click, I can create a guide. Now this guide over here tells me the position of the guide. As you can see, X position. So I can set this all the way to 960. All right, so that's the center of the comp. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this guide. I don't need it. And I'm going to turn off rulers. I'm just showing you that's how you can actually visually see the center of the comp instead of just guessing by numbers or hoping that the numbers are right. So my numbers are definitely right. 960 is the center of the comp. And let me go ahead and take the time slider and drag it now. You can see it slides into position. Now let me go back to frame 0. And this time I am going to drag into the negative value on the Z axis. And you can see here that brings the icon towards the camera. So I'm going to just keep clicking and dragging. And then maybe drag it down on the Y axis a little bit. Something like that. And let's drag it more towards the camera. I don't want to go too far, which it looks like I did. Okay, so if I'm worried about the position of the object, what I could do is come over to the top view here, active camera, top, zoom out, and I can see in relative position to the camera where my object is. So I'm going to take it a little bit further to about there. That should be good enough. Let me go a little bit more. Okay, so now let me zoom out. Now, what you're seeing here is this animation arc that's being created. So remember, we only set 3 keyframes, and then what After Effects does is it creates an interpolation in between the keyframes. So it's kind of creating its own animation. Now, this little arc is what we call spatial interpolation, and I don't want it. I don't want this whole kind of swinging out and then swinging way behind the keyframes. So to change this, what we need to do is come down to the timeline. I'm going to hit tilde, which is above the tab key, and I'm going to drag select over these keyframes. And I'm going to right click, and I'm going to jump down to keyframe interpolation, and we're going to change spatial right here. So right now the linear interpolation, which is, or temporal, is the time. Spatial is the physical space. So we're going to switch this to linear. Okay, instead it was on auto bezier, I'm going to switch it to linear. And I'm going to click OK. Now if I hit tilde again to come out of this mode, you can see here now I have straight lines. And this is exactly what I want. Otherwise I would have issues with how it's positioning itself. So let's go ahead and go back to camera, active camera. And I'm going to pull this up. Let me close out the info tab. Don't need it. And I'll say fit. Okay, so let's go ahead and play this back. I'm going to hit 0 on the keyboard. And you can see here now the object is moving into position. In fact, actually, I'm going to set this to quarter just to speed up the process. So there we have it. Let me grab this work bar area, move it down. All right, so let's go ahead and start playing with, let's first save this file. I'm thinking that we should have a pause after it lands in a position in the center before it slides over. Now, we cannot copy and paste all these keyframes here into this position. Let's say we wanted it at frame 25. We cannot copy these keyframes and paste them here unless we did it one layer at a time. We can't do it to multiple layers. So you can't copy and paste keyframes on multiple layers, because basically what it does is copy and paste the layer itself. There are plugins that you can buy that will allow you to copy and paste keyframes on multiple layers. I think they're about $9 from scriptspot.com or something like that. I think it's ScriptSpot. But in this case, we don't have access to it. So it's very simple in this scenario. All we need to do is take a look at the values in this keyframe. So the only one that's changing is the 960. So I'm going to take the time slider all the way to frame 25 and type in 960. And you can see here, now I get my pause. Now, if you did not switch your keyframes over to linear interpolation for spatial, what you're going to get is a slight movement going on between these two keyframes. So all you need to do is right click with these keyframes selected. Let's make sure I have them all here, and right click and say keyframe interpolation and switch the spatial here to linear the way I have it. Okay, and that's why we selected all of them earlier to do that, so we wouldn't have to keep doing it every time we added keyframes. So now I have my pause, and then it moves. And I'm going to hit tilde above the tab key, grab all these keyframes, and slide them over. Probably something like that. And then move these over. I don't know how long I'm going to need the actual pause, but this would be a good start point. Tilde again. So what I'm thinking is that when this logo comes in, let's go ahead and just play this, that it creates a shock wave when it hits, and that shock wave reveals something below it. All right. So let's go ahead and save this before we continue. Let's create the background piece now. So go ahead and minimize the layers you have selected. We're going to come up to Layer, New, Solid, and we're going to call this, let's call it digital, or you can call it anything you want, maybe clouds. Now I'm going to grab this layer and drag it all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to duplicate it. So Control D on the keyboard with it selected, or you can come up to Edit, Duplicate right here. All right, so with it, the second one added, I'm going to right click on it, say rename. I'm going to call this black background. And this one is fine for clouds. So I'm going to select the cloud layer. I'm going to go to Effects Presets. And what you want to do is, I'm going to clear that out so you can see that I have nothing in here. You do want to choose Noise. And under the Noise and Grain tab, you're going to choose Fractal Noise right here. So if you can't search it, just go into the Noise and Grain, Fractal Noise. We're going to drag and drop that to the clouds layer. As you can see here, it actually created a cloud-looking effect. So what we want to do is change the settings to this. You could leave it if you like it, but I'm going to come into Fractal Noise. In fact, before I do that, I'm going to switch this from soft linear to block. And I'm also going to switch my view to full for the level of detail and zoom into 100%. Okay, so we can really see the effect that we're creating. So then I would come in here and start choosing different options. That's going to give me different types of looks. All right, which are pretty cool. I think though the look that works well is cloudy. Nope. Rocky. Well, actually I think it is cloudy, because what I want to do is I'm going to click invert and try cloudy again. There we go. What I want is a very dark pattern that's being revealed. So that works. Now you have lots of options in here to control the various different look. You have contrast. So if let's say I bring this down, see it brings in more white. If I bring it up, brings in more black. Set this back to 100. Brightness, makes it brighter, makes it darker. I think that was at 0. Transform options. So I have rotation, scale. Can really scale this up if I needed to. And offsets. Let me go ahead and minimize this for now. Complexity. Let's say if I set this to 1, you can see now it just looks like a bunch of blocks. But if I set this to, let's say it was at 6, I get a lot of detail. And I can choose something in between if I need to pull some detail out. But I like 6, so we're going to stick with 6. Then I have subsettings, these little sub squares that are being created. If I set this to 0, you can see it cleans it up to just being boxes, or I can set it to, let's say, let's give it an actual value, 30. So I'm starting to bring in those smaller boxes again. I think it was at 60 or 70. 60 works. I have subscaling, so I can increase and decrease the scale if I wanted. Let's try decreasing it. That's better. Okay, so I have offset options, evolution options. I mean, there's just a lot of things that you can control in here, but I think I'm pretty happy with what I've got right now. Okay, so now that I've got my noise pattern, again, on my clouds layer, what I'm going to do is change the overlay mode, or the blending mode, I should say, and click on this icon right here, and go over to where it says normal, and I can choose, let's say, overlay, which everything goes back because it's trying to overlay over black, okay? I can do darken, so there's lots of options, and I might play with these as we're going along. All right, so now that we've got our cloud set and our background set, I need to create the ring wave that happens when the object touches down. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. First of all, you want to make sure nothing is selected in here. So you got to go Edit, Deselect All, or Shift Control A. And again, make sure nothing is highlighted. And you're going to come up to this tool up here, Shape Tool, and you're going to click and hold it down, and we want a circular ellipse tool. All right. Now you have the fill and stroke options. So the fill, you don't want any fill on this one. So click on the word fill and make sure you check none. This one's solid color, linear gradient, and radial gradient. So you have some options, but we don't want an actual fill. So I'm going to click OK. And then the stroke, you can click on stroke and choose a couple of options, gradient, radial gradient, and solid. I think I'm going to stick with solid right now. Even have options for the blending mode as well. I'm going to leave everything as is and click OK. Now the stroke size is right here. So you can, I think this is like normally at 30 or something, but I'll leave it at 30 for right now and then we'll adjust it. So we have stroke, and then the color, you can click on the actual color icon and change it. And I think I'm happy with the orange, so I'm going to click OK. So instead of clicking and dragging the viewport like this is one way of creating it. I'm going to Control Z that. What I want to do is just double click on the tool. And that's going to create it directly in the center and the size of the comp. Then I can come in. Let's go, let's say, transform. Actually, it's the ellipse that we want. Ellipse path. And right here where it says size, I'm going to uncheck this and change this to 1080. And it makes it a perfect circle. Okay, so now I can minimize this, minimize this, minimize this, and I can use the normal scale tool to scale it up and down. So I can have it animating from the center out. All right, so let's drag this down, 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 down. I'll put it on top for right now just so we can see it. And I'm going to open up any one of these layers, the position. So it's going to start right when it hits, but I think I'm going to go a couple frames before. Oh, maybe let's start here. So scale, I'm going to set it to 0. Oops, 0. Scale. So I set a keyframe, and I'm going to go to frame maybe a little bit past the position and say 100. In fact, we want more than 100. We want to scale it up past the comp window. So just like that. So now it's animating, expanding out. I do want to change its center point, or the position, I should say, to more the center of the logo. There we go. So it hits and it creates the shockwave. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some options we have with this. Number one, I think I do want to bring this up to 100 for the thickness. And let's grab this guy and move it below the clouds. And voila, this is the effect that we're getting. So now we can see the cloud effect or the box pattern that we created. I'm going to change the overlay mode. Right now it's set to darken. I can say multiply. Creates a different look. Color burn. Definitely not. Classic color burn. Nope. Let's try overlay. Let's see what that does. No. Add. No. Nope. We did overlay, all right? Let's try a hard light. Yeah, that's better. Soft light. Nope. Linear light. So you can go through and click on each one of these to see what kind of various effects you're going to get. So I think I like multiply. It's either multiply or soft light. Or not. Is it soft light or hard light? Yeah, hard light. I think I like hard light the most. Actually, hard light's bleeding through some other elements. So no, we're going to go with multiply. All right. So now what I want to do is add a blur effect to this line. So that way it doesn't look so hard from the shockwave. So with the cloud layer selected, actually not the cloud layer, the shape layer. I'm going to minimize this, minimize this. So the shape layer selected, let's rename this to ring. Okay, so with the ring layer selected, let's go over to effects and you want to type in blur. And we're looking for fast blur right here. So under blur and sharpen, fast blur, it's going to give us the fastest results. So I'm going to click and drag this to the ring. And you can see here it's added fast blur. Let's increase the value. And there you have it. So now it's a nice soft ring. So let's go ahead and drop this back down to quarter so we can see it play back. I'm going to hit 0 on the keyboard. So that's pretty cool. Now, what we could do, I'm going to hit U on the keyboard to show the keyframes for the scale. I'm going to add in the easy ease. In fact, I'm going to stretch this out a little bit more. Right click, key assistant, ease in. It's a little bit better for the animation. Okay. So now I want to start playing with the motion of the actual logo. So let me click this, click here. I'm going to hide the trap CG stuff for right now. So let me click and drag these icons just so they're not in the shot distracting me. All right, so I'm going to hit P for position and I'm probably going to drag this up a little bit so I can kind of see my keyframe or all my layers. There we go. Okay, so I'm thinking that probably I could offset each piece, but I don't want to do that. I want the, actually, I want to maybe offset the outer pieces and then have the inner pieces come in at once. So let's go ahead and take, let's see here. Where's the last outer piece? I think this is. Let me click off of these. Okay, yep, this is the last outer piece. So this guy all the way up to here, I'm going to grab these keyframes and scoot them over a little bit. So they're a little bit faster. And then what I'm going to do is offset them. So maybe by 1 frame. So I'm doing this a little bit different. Instead of by layer, I'm doing it by keyframe. Oops. So 1, there we go. 1, 1, and whoops. Sticking every time I try clicking. Okay, and then the last one. There we go. So I'm going to grab all these and scoot them back. to about there. So it's the last piece that comes in. And then I'm going to drag these guys out so it has its pause. Maybe even drag these guys back a little bit. And come down to my ring, hit U to see the keyframes. And these are going to start here. Grab all the pauses. Almost didn't get the top one. Okay, so let's play back that, see what that looks like. 0 on the keyboard. Why? Did I lose my camera? No. Okay, so I know what happened, why we're not seeing this at the correct position that we created before, and that's because I turned off the camera. So let me turn the camera back on. There we go. Okay, so now that we have that set in place, we have the pieces coming in, logo hits, reveals some red stuff, and sliding off to the side. Probably the pause is too long, so I'm going to hit U. Grab all these keyframes, pull them back a little bit. Pull this guy back out. Okay, so this I want an ease in for all these back-end keyframes. So right click, keyframe assistant, ease in. This one I want an ease out. Keyframe assistant, ease out. And I actually want a hard impact here, so I'm not going to have an ease in. And I'm thinking, let me stretch this out a little bit more. I would rather have, well, that's good. Okay, so now that we have the ring explosion done, we have the, let's go ahead and minimize this. We can minimize all these as well. We have the background all set up. Let's go ahead and work on the text now. Now remember, like the issue that we ran in before, if your text, your logo is jumping around in position, just make sure your camera's on. I almost forgot about that. So let's go ahead and go to the T, let's go to the G, and turn these on. And I'm thinking I'm going to do like a rotate in, but 3D rotate in. So let's go ahead and turn these to 3D mode as well. And final position, let's maybe make it around here for right now. So final rotation, I should say, R on the keyboard. And let's take a look at which rotation we want. So it is the Y rotation. So I'm going to undo that. Click the Y stopwatch. Take the time slider back. And I think I want it to start around right when the logo passes the T. Let's go right about there. I'm going to set this to 90. Now I'm going to have to offset some of these a little bit more so I don't see them. As you can see here, I'm starting to see the sides of them. And you know what? Maybe actually just do a full rotation in. So let me go ahead and set these to, let me set this, leave it at 90, but I'm going to set it at 1. Just to see. Okay, so 1 full rotation. Okay. And I'm going to grab all these keyframes. I'm going to hit tilde just to make sure I have them. Right click, keyframe assistant, ease in. And I'm going to go to the graph editor and kind of pull this out a little bit more. Nice ease in. Okay, tilde again. And now that that's set, let's go ahead and set the alpha. So the first keyframe here, hit T on the keyboard, click on opacity. I'm going to drag these keyframes over. So it'll become full res to about there and set it to 0. I'm going to hit U just to see the keyframes. Maybe drag these out a little bit more. Okay, so let's offset these. I'm going to hit U. In fact, actually, let's, it would help if we set the beginning start point of each one of these layers to the first keyframe. So I'm going to hold down Alt and the bracket right next to P, and that's the opening bracket. So it allows me to set the start point for each one of these layers. And now what I could do, I'm going to hit offset these. So I'm just going to offset them by hand. Okay, they need to start sooner, so I'm going to grab them. And no, they don't. So these guys, I'm going to offset 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, oops, that's 2. Okay, now take this time, drag it back. Now, I don't like the way they're spinning, so I'm going to open up these guys, U on the keyboard, and I think I'm going to have to do this one at a time unless I reposition them right on top of each other. In fact, yep. So instead of +1, I'm going to say -1 on each one of these, because I think they're just rotating in the wrong direction. -1. -1. And you can see here when you animate things one at a time, how much time you lose building the animation. Yeah, much better. Okay, so now that we've done a little bit of compositing, put some layers on top of other layers to create some various different effects, and added some actual effects to the layers, I'm thinking about maybe pre-comping this logo so I can create a lighting effect to it. If anything, at least pre-comping the center point. No, I think the whole logo. So a comp, as you know, are these elements over here. You can actually place a comp inside a comp. So let's say I'm on logo animation 3. I can drag logo animation 2 into this comp and I can have it in here with it. I'm not going to do that though, so Control Z. I can also take and select layers and turn them into compositions. So add them to their own comp. So I'm going to select all these pieces here. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to create an effect that I want to apply to all the elements in the logo, not just the one piece at a time. So with all the pieces selected, the shortcut key is Control-Shift-C on the keyboard. Otherwise, you have to go to Composition. Actually, no, you have to right-click. You have to right-click and say Pre-Comp right here. So pre-compose, it's going to ask you what you want to do. We do want to move all attributes, adjust compositions, length, all that stuff, and then we can call this icon, logo, and click OK. So you can see here it applied it as a comp, and if I double click on this comp, it opens up a new tab, and there's my logo again. Now, to give you a heads up, if I take the time slider back, see how it's in that weird position again? If we turn on this right here, it's going to correct it, all right? So this corrects, it's going to apply the camera to the logo inside, all right? If you don't like to sit there and use this tool, just copy and paste this camera into here, okay? So if all you need to do is hit Control-C, come to here, Control-V, and that will fix it as well. So I'm going to undo that. because all we need to do is turn, like I said, this icon for the logo on. All right. And again, what that's doing, it's applying the effects out here to work with the effects in here. So the 3D layers. In fact, if I roll over this, collapse transforms for vector layer, continuously rasterize. So it doesn't say anything about the whole applying comps. I guess that there's no way of explaining it, it just works. Okay. So now that we have a pre-comp, what we could do is apply an effect to this entire thing. So let's come back over to effects and presets, and I'm going to type in light. Okay. And there's lots of light options in here, but we're going to scroll all the way down, and it's going to be under generate. So if you don't have the search option, go to generate, and we want light burst. All right. So I'm going to click and drag this to my composition, and you can see here it adds this light burst effect. And let me go back to full just so you can see what it's doing. All right. So now if I increase the intensity, now this is very memory hoggish. So I'm going to drop this back down to quarter, and the intensity, I'm going to say 200, and the ray length, I'm going to say 300. And that's the effect that we get. Now, again, I'm seeing this at quarter. So if I switch this to full, it's going to take a sec, but it will update. Why is it not updating? Interesting. Oh, I'm not going to sit here and fight with it. So let's go back down to quarter, and let's ray length. You have options for the fade, straight, centered. So lots of good options in here. I'm going to go with fade. Maybe even straight, actually, or centered. Okay, so I'm sticking with fade, and what I'm thinking is having it burst when it creates this whole shockwave. So I'm going to go hit U, and I'm going to go back to this layer here, intensity and ray length. I'm going to go ahead and set these down to 0. All right. And then I'm going to hit U on the keyboard to see both keyframes. Scroll out to maybe about here. Increase the ray length and intensity. Maybe not that much. Let's bring it down. And then I also have options of I can set a specific color, and I can actually set it as a halo effect. All right, so a lot of cool options for this effect. So it's bursting out, and then I'll have it come back down to normal. Let's go 0 and 0. Okay, now you notice that when the logo started to move, it started kind of changing direction. You do have an option for the center point of this effect. If I click here, I can change its center point. So I think maybe right in the center would be better. So it's going to go boom. And I think what I want to do is offset this by 1 frame. Okay. So let's go ahead and check that. Now I kind of don't like the color that it's creating. So I can either turn off intensity and not use it, so it just uses its normal color, or like I said, I can go set color and play with various different color options. Maybe something like that. Yeah, no, It's overriding all the color of the logo. And there is a way that I can address this. And that's by duplicating this layer up and having it fade and all that. But I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to leave set color off. Okay, so that's it. There is our fourth logo animation. We've created effects for it. We've created compositing for the ring. I'm thinking the ring itself, maybe adjusting 120, maybe 200. Now, remember, since we scaled it up, we probably need to increase how far it goes. There we go. And let's play with blur. So that's pretty cool. All right, so this animation I can actually, since it ends at almost 2, probably could leave it at 4. And let's go ahead and go File, Save, and set this for rendering out. So minimize this, composition, add to render queue, delete the ones that we've done before, go ahead and switch this to QuickTime, and format options are going to be RGB. I'm going to switch this to H.264 just because I'm going to just render this out. Click OK. And it's going to save as logo animation 3. That's fine. Save. And click render. I'm going to pause it here and let it finish rendering. So it just finished rendering. So let me go ahead and close this and jump over to tutorials, logo animation, AE, and whoops, it's going to be final renders. Number 3, I should be able to play this back in QuickTime without a problem because it's an H.264. It's only 6 megs. And let me go ahead and hit play. All right, so there's the logo effect. The biggest thing I don't like now that I'm seeing it play back real time, and there's a couple things I forgot to turn on. I forgot to turn on the little star icons for the vectoring. You can see here it looks pixelated near the camera. I forgot to turn on motion blur. I think that would have added some, especially to the spinning of the text. And I don't like the orange effect off this blue. Definitely don't, because it's like a greenish blue and it's a reddish orange. So those are the things that I think I need to adjust and fix. So let's do that real quick. Jump back in here, delete this, come back to this logo. So the first thing we need to do is jump into here and turn on all these. And I'm going to turn on motion blur. Activate it in the comp. Come back over here, turn it on in this comp, and turn on motion blur here. I don't need to activate the vector thing on these because these guys aren't scaled up or down. Let's see here, and we also wanted to change the cloud color, or it's actually the ring color I need to change. So let me grab the time slider, put it in here somewhere. Let's go with a blue. Greenish blue, probably like something like that, so it matches the explosion effect. Now, if I wanted to also make this more dramatic, I could play with, let's go to the cloud level, I could add what they call a curves. Right here, curves. All right, and I can actually pull this up and down. Now, let me actually just pull it this way. Something like that. Makes it a little bit more digital looking. Okay, so just to show you, let me switch this back to full. And switch this back to, I'm going to get off the, I'll leave it right now. We'll zoom in to 100, pull this off to the side. Okay, so the curves, if I hide the effect, it's not updating. And I think it's because it's fighting this effect here. So let me just hide this layer. Okay, so full. See the difference between the curve effect and not curve effect. So I'm going to stick with the curves. So I'm good there. Let me reactivate the icon. And you can see even turning it back on, it's taking a while to update because of that effect that we've added. So I'm going to switch this back to quarter. Go File, Save. And let's set this to render again. Composition, add to rendering queue. I'm going to set it as a QuickTime. H.264 is fine. And I'm actually going to delete this logo. So everything's good, and render. It just finished rendering, so let's take a look. Much better. All right, so there's a few things. Number one, could add more motion blur to the spinning text, and again you have to do that under Composition Advanced tab, but everything else looks pretty good. Colors look good, and these look good when they're close to the camera. So yep, everything else is adjusted and it's got a nice effect to it. All right, so let me minimize this for now, and just to go through some of the settings real quick, let's jump back into Trap CG. If you open up the camera settings here and open up camera options, this is where you can adjust the settings for, you have depth of field, which we have off. I didn't turn that on. Focal distance, where you can choose where the depth is being applied. You have blur level options, grain. I mean, there's just a lot of things that you can change in here. I'm going to switch over to compositional settings. As a reminder, advanced, this is where you can adjust the motion blur amount to increase it, and even increase the amount of steps in between the motion blur. So just a side note, last but definitely not least, we need to add audio to our file. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize the camera, and let's go to the internet to search for some audio. So if you type in free sound effects, and then you just browse through various different sound libraries to find the sound effects you're looking for, you can probably type in, let's say, impact. And you can see here that they've got many different sound effects that we can play. And I believe you can just right click and let's see, save as. Let's see if it saves it. Nope, that's not it. It saves it as an HTML, so let's click on it. Yep, there's the sound, and we want to download, it looks like at this site you can actually click the WAV file here and it will start downloading it. Yep. So that's how you're going to grab multiple different sound effects. My suggestion is, I'm going to go ahead and come out of there, go to videocopilot.net and then go to Motion Pulse Ultimate Sound FX Kit. Okay, so this is an audio kit that has many different sound effects in it. All right, and it does cost money. It looks like the base price is $149, so $150. But this carries many different sound effects that are excellent quality. All right, and this is always something good to have in your packet of tools. It's definitely worth having good audio and sound effects in your libraries. So again, my suggestion is go purchase this instead of downloading free sound effects, but there's nothing wrong with going around and finding free sound effects and downloading it. Every once in a while, I can't find a sound effect from this kit or from another library I have, so I do go to the internet to see if I can find it. And you can actually type in specifically what sound effect you're looking for, like free impact sound effects, free water sound effects, whatever you want to do on the internet, you should be able to search for it and find it. But at the end of the day, my suggestion still lies with the buying the Motion Pulse sound kit from videocopilot.net. And I have no affiliation with these people. I just think it's just an amazing sound kit. So enough of that. Let me jump forward here. Now I did create a folder called audio, and I dragged and dropped a few audio pieces into it for this particular tutorial. And these are all from the Motion Sound Kit. So So I'm going to start with the bass drop. I'm going to drag and drop that in here. And if I double click on it, I can play it. Where's my play icon? I just hit spacebar on the keyboard. Okay, so that's the sound effect. Jump back over here. I can actually close this window. And I'm going to drag and drop this to my timeline. Now to see the waveform, all I need to do is open up these arrows here. And there's the waveform. As you can see, the audio starts there, so I'm going to clip it there. And if I hit 0 on the keyboard to pre-render the animation, oops, let me actually turn off audio right now. I just want to get the animation rendered out first. Okay, so now that I have the animation rendered out, let me go ahead and turn on the audio. Okay, so I want the impact to start right when this effect happens. So let me drag this over. Drag it over a little bit more, and let's try there. So let me hit 0. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay. Now I'm also going to open up, I'm going to go Window, and let's open up Audio. This is the audio meter, so let me play this again. Now you can see here it's redlining, which means it's too hot. And I need to decrease the audio levels right here, so this is the dB. And I'm going to go ahead and set this to, let's say, -10. Okay, that was probably a little too much, but you can see here now that the audio only stays in the green. So let's go -8. That's a little bit better. I don't mind it coming near to the -6. Now, if you're working with a specific type of company or broadcast, you'll probably have to stay within a certain range. I think some networks actually had to stay all the way down in the -19, 18 range. Some will allow me to go all the way up to the -12. But they're fairly low because they're boosting it within the playback devices that they're using. So anyway, I can probably bring this up a little bit more, so I'm going to go -6. Yeah, that's better. As long as I'm not redlining it, that's the big thing. Okay. So now that I've got that effect in place, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these other effects. It's fairly simple. Whoops, not that one. Here we go. So epic whoosh, or swish, sorry. Let me drag and drop that in here. And drag and drop it to the timeline. Go ahead and open it up. Clip it, because I don't want to try to start it where it actually doesn't start, and I think this one will work at the beginning. So that's perfect. So let's go ahead and take a look at another sound effect. I have this swish. I'm just going to double click it to play it. I think I might actually like this slam better. So let me go ahead and drag and drop it into my comp. All right, and I can create a folder, click here, call it audio, and drag and drop all my audio files to it. There we go. Looks like I accidentally opened up a comp, don't need this comp. We're focused on this one. So let me try dragging and dropping this in here. Opening it up. And this one starts right at the beginning. So let's open this guy up too so I can match. So it looks like to have the main impact somewhere right around in here. That should work. Let's try that. I'm going to turn off this audio just by hitting this icon right here. Okay, I think I like that better. Let me just play back the other one. Yeah, definitely like. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. Stick with the slam. Okay, now let's jump back over here. And the spin effect, let me add that to the list. Okay, drag and drop it. Let's open it up. Click the beginning of it. Okay, so this is a spin effect. And to be honest, I want to apply this to when the text starts spinning in. So maybe right around in here. Let's try that. And I'm sure this audio is really hot. I haven't adjusted any of the dBs. Okay, so lots of dB issues here. Everything's really, really loud. Now, this audio, I only need it for a brief second, and then I need it to fade out. So maybe this one right here, I'm going to go ahead and go to, let's say, right around here. And I'm going to click this little keyframe next to audio levels. And I'm going to drag a little bit past. And let's set this to a negative. So the most that it will go to if you click and drag is -48. However, that's technically not completely out. So I'm going to manually type in negative, let's say 200. And the max it goes to is -192, which means that the audio is completely fade out. I can probably stretch this out a little bit more. Let me pull this out a little bit more. So I'm just working with the keyframes that I created. And go all the way. Yep, that's better. Now you don't have to go to all the way to the -192 if you don't want to. Some people actually think -48 is fine. Just to show you the difference. Okay. So let me pull out here, center this. So we've created these various different audio effects. We didn't create them, we just added them. And that's pretty much it. There isn't anything amazing about any of this stuff. I shouldn't say it is amazing. The great audio is always helps. I'm going to set this to -6 and set this one to -6 as well. Okay. Yep, see, I almost got all of it except for this last. Let me pause it and set this to -6. Oops. Because I already have my keyframes, I need to be specific where I set my start keyframe. So -6. There we go. Okay, so nothing's redlining. Everything looks good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Now we have our audio in. Again, we go composition and we come down to add to render queue. Delete the previous one. Go ahead and set this up for QuickTime or whatever format you want to run. H.264 is fine. Click OK. And this time I'm going to save right on top of the logo animation 3. Save, replace, and render. It just finished rendering, so let me go ahead and minimize this and go to the logo animation, final renders, and play 3. Anytime now. There we go. Let me maximize it. Yep. See how just adding a little bit of audio can help improve the overall effect. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial series and an introduction to After Effects, learning the layout, learning how to animate, and learning how to add audio to your scenes. And I guess go ahead and join me for another tutorial series, and I'll catch you guys next time.